Hello there, I'm Keel Sterone and Beatmaker, and on this episode of the Monday Mindset Podcast, we're going to be talking about not overreacting. We all struggle with overreacting to situations and moments in our life, and oftentimes we feel in those moments that our reaction is justified. And, maybe it is, but are you willing to carry the weight of the consequences of overreacting? And I think a lot of us in the moment would say yes. Um, I think mostly out of pride and I think fear as well. Um, because, overreacting um, it never gets you anywhere. And, the consequences, they, they can be that's the crazy thing about overreacting is that sometimes the consequences are minor, but they will have a long lasting effect. Especially if you're a person that's constantly overreacting. And you may say in the moment, yeah, I can take those consequences, but not necessarily, especially if it's a massive blow to your ego. Better yet, the consequences of overreacting, most often not, it's a massive punch to the gut in terms of guilt. It's a massive punch of embarrassment and regret. Those of us who, are self aware and are, not, narcissistic or selfish constantly, we'll realize that and we'll feel that in that, in the aftermath of overreacting. It may be moments afterwards, it may be hours, a day, a week later, but you're going to feel it um, because you're going to see it in the other person's reaction or people. You're going to see it in your family members. You're going to see it in that loved one. You're going to see it in, fellow coworkers or your employees. And it's not worth it. It's not worth all of that. It's not worth the guilt and the embarrassment and the regret. But the problem is also is that many of us, all of us, we we suffer, especially right now, especially during these trying times that we're living in, with the pandemic and people being unemployed, family and friends who may have lost loved ones to COVID, the violence that's been going on throughout the country, the protesting, the racism, the harassment, you know, how you can any of those you can use as an excuse for overreacting in any situation. But after a while, people are going to wise up to the excuse and they're going to know that it's not genuine. And what then? What are you're gonna keep playing the game? Keep overreacting? Even when you don't even really need to overreact, you're just having to do that because we live in a world now of reaction. Constant reaction. Think about that. We literally live in a time of just reaction. Before there was times where people would take a moment to breathe and then react. But we don't do that anymore, especially because of social media. Social media is just 24/7 reaction. That's all it is. There's no moments to breathe, there's no moments to process, to learn, to educate, to do research. There's none of that. It's just constant reaction, constant overreaction, constant overthinking. How many tweets have been blown out of proportion or people going crazy? Facebook posts, Instagram lives. whatever it is, people overreacting, going just overreacting to the point where they cause self-harm, harm to others. It could cost them a job, a relationship, their life. That's literally the world that we are living in right now because we're all overreacting. And why should we not? Or we're all experiencing, the feeling that our government has failed us and is killing us and denying us, and we can't go outside, we can't trust each other, we can't embrace one another. So we're overreacting at the grocery store, we're overreacting online about all our problems. But we don't even see the reality that we're hurting more because of we're hurting more because of the situation and the actions of the words. We're not necessarily being hurt by that. And what I'm trying to say is because I'm butchering myself, but we hurt more not because of the situation, the action, or the words. It's because we most likely are hurt by someone we care for. So, and what I mean by that is like everything that we're experiencing in our world right now, it affects someone that we care for. Everything. And yeah, we're frustrated about, unemployment. We're frustrated because, maybe our hours have been cut, or, you know, when we work full time, and this is something I heard on the radio, this woman who has an autistic kid, but the school shut down, so you know, she had to go part time to kind of take care of her kid and help him with his education. But if she works part time, they take her insurance away. Excuse me, I apologize. They take her. Excuse me, I apologize about that. They take her insurance away, and I mean, she's not. From what I remember, she wasn't reacting or upset about um the insurance. She was caring more about her child. How does she help her child? What does she do in the situation that she's lost in? And I'm impressed. From what I remember, she didn't overreact. She was just trying to balance it all out, figure it out. But not everyone is like that. Most of us are overreacting to everything, and sometimes we have a valid reason. But my point is it worth the cost? Is it worth the pain? Even if you stick it to them and you get in the last word and microphone drop and you walk out the room, but was it worth it in the end? And that's something that you know I think we all struggle when it comes to overreacting. When we overreact, we're trying to hurt. We're getting defensive, and especially in this world that we live in, and especially with social media, we're always on the defensive because we go on Facebook, we go on Twitter, we go on Instagram, we scroll and we see, you know, what's going on in the world with our administration. We see the way someone's living, we see the way someone's talking, we see the hate, the racism, the misogyny, the conspiracies, the harassment, the bullying, the trolling, and you want to react to it and you want to hurt. And a lot of people out there on social media who react in hurtful ways and painful ways. When they react like that, it's only because of what's going on internally, what's going on in their personal lives. That's the problem with overreaction, and especially in the society that we live in the climate and culture that we live in. You know, when we overreact so much on social media, on those platforms, and when we're overreacting and we're arguing with other people and it's going on for days and for hours, and we're constantly thinking about it, You're not going to tell me that that doesn't seep into our personal lives? That constant overreaction, that we don't then take that out and inflict it onto our loved ones and onto our family members, especially if we're pissed off with who our president is and the comments that says and the way he's running the country and the administration. You don't think that we don't take that out on our family members, on our friends, on our neighbors, regardless of their political views, regardless of their skin tone? I mean, think about that. Think about how we live in a culture of overreaction now. And yet we're expected to especially, right now, go to work, go to work, look for work, wake up every day, figure out how to stay afloat and not overreact, and not overreact to, our our loved one not taking the trash out, or our kids not doing their homework, or not focusing on Zoom, whatever the situation is. It's practically impossible not to overreact nowadays. We don't have normal conversations anymore. We don't communicate face to face. We communicate. Think about it this way. All right. When we're not even happy, we communicate through emojis, we communicate through GIFs, we communicate through memes. Hell, I'm one of those people. I can admit that. And then even when we try to communicate, especially if you do it through text message, people will misinterpret it and then overreact to your text response. So I prefer FaceTime. That way I can see you, you can see me. If I can't meet you in person, at least that way I can see you. And that way I can judge and react appropriately to the way you're reacting. And even then, I know that I am um react can overreact all at any moment to different situations. Yeah. Overthinking is overreacting is a byproduct of overthinking. And think about that. Think about the fact that when we're overthinking about anything in our lives, that then will make us overreact. And it might not even have anything to do with what we're overthinking about, what we're stressed about, but we overreact to anything. We're all victims of it, and we're all perpetrators of it. And we all have to figure out and check ourselves in those moments. And I mean, the easiest way to do it is just hold yourself accountable. Last episode I gave an example of how I didn't control keep my emotions in control, and I overreacted to a conversation with my mom. I highly, highly recommend you check out that episode. It's really deep and powerful and emotional. I really do a deep dive into some personal things that I'm going through. But like, when we overreact, especially with our loved ones, we it always comes down to the ego in the end. And even especially with social media, like, we've all, I mean, I don't really get into the whole Twitter spats online. Like, I'll read them. They can be entertaining, and even that's not even healthy. But I can't get into that stuff. I'm too laid back for it, and I know where a lot of it is coming from. And so, if for me, it's like, why invest in that? You're investing so much of your it's all ego driven, that overreaction, and it's so draining. Constantly overreacting, and just overreacting in any moment, it's draining. It's an emotional drain, it's a spiritual drain. And after a while, like, you lose energy, you lose the will, you're just filled with this anger, and you're tight, your body is tight, you're constantly on edge, constantly on the defense. You sure as hell cannot take constructive criticism. We've all been there. We've all been there when someone gives us criticism, whether it's constructive or not, and we overreact. And especially, it's even worse when it's like family members. And I have a family member in particular that she can be very criticizing of people, and it's because she thinks that she knows how people need to react. She feels that she knows all the information. Very, I know it, I get it. Um, and it's, whoo, I'll tell you, it is so hard not to overreact with her. I have seen it, everybody, even myself, we are so quick to overreact to her because it's like, hey, God damn it, why are you talking like that? Why you have to say that? Why you gotta act like that? Like, why, like 24/7? It's exhausting. And so you want to react to them, overreact to them. You want to get it to them. And I've learned to just, but we all have our moments. I'm learning in those moments, like, okay, here's a good example of one. So, and this is with my mom. This one's good. This one's funny. I like this one. Um, okay, so my mom was like, "All right, I'm on my way to pick you up." So yeah, I do drive and I do have a car, but I'll get into why my mom drives me to work another time. Um, um, I do have my license. It's everything's good. I do have one parking ticket that I got to take care of, and it's not my fault. It's a certain someone's fault, but I'm not gonna get into that either. So back to my story. Okay, so my mom's like, "Hey, I'm on my way there. I'm gonna pick you up." I'm like, "All right, cool." So then she's like, "Okay, I'm here. Should I go get gas?" And I was like, "All right, yeah, go get gas." Because I'm like, well, I told her I'm getting dressed. And she's like, "Okay, well, should I go get gas?" And I was like, "Go get gas." So she comes back, I come down, and she's like, I don't understand why when you tell me to come at a specific time, you're not even ready, you're not even dressed. And I'm like, but Ma, shouldn't you, when you say that you want me to pick you up at 2 o'clock, that you should be downstairs and dressed at 2 o'clock? And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, why can't you do that for me? It's not fair. And I didn't get the chance to drop off my packages for mommy. And I'm like, okay, okay. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what, mom? All right, that's fine. I could have overreacted and gone like, really, mom? That's what you're gonna say to me? What about how constantly when I would ask you to pick me up, you would be 30, 40 minutes late? What about that time you forgot to pick me up because you were at church? I mean, come on. Are you serious? Or how many times do I have to come and get you and you're not even ready and I get there early and we're running late? So I could have gone off on a spiel and I could have stuck it to her and yeah, got it in. But would it be worth it? I would hurt my mom. We'd get into an argument. It would ruin the rest of the day, the vibe, the energy. And so I use that as an example of the consequences of what can happen when you overreact. I didn't overreact, but I knew in my head if I overreacted and said the things that I wanted to say, this is how the rest of the day would play out. And it wasn't worth it, especially with what's going on in my family. If you want to learn more about that, check out my Monday Mindset episode, the Monday Mindset episode, focus on what you can control. So, like, you know, that's something that, like in overreacting, like I was saying, we wish to return that same hurt or that same criticism or that same reaction, that we are feeling in that moment. Because it has nothing to do with, defending ourselves. Well, it has, with defending ourselves, or the feelings, but it's to really to make the other person hurt as much as they hurt us. And I mean, I guess in a way, it has to do with defending our feelings and ourselves, but it more has to do with defending the ego. Because in the end, like I showed you in my example, my overreaction all would have just stemmed from my ego. She bruised my ego with her comment because she was right. And there was no way of me to prove, nothing for me to say to prove her wrong except overreact and go off on that spiel and rant. So it always comes down to ego when it comes to overreacting, especially with the social causes and the the woke stuff and all of that. It's all ego driven. It's all ego driven. Overreactions are evil, ego driven. And that's why I was trying to use that example, because it would have just been my ego. My mom bruised my ego. Look at social media. Social media, everyone's reactions in those crazy arguments, it's just a lot of people with bruised egos who don't know how to brush it off, who don't know how to heal. And that's something that we all need to learn. We need to learn to roll with the punches when it comes to our ego. And, you know, overreaction, learning how to not overreact, catching yourself in those moments, it takes practice. It doesn't come overnight. I know that, people. I know everything I'm saying. It doesn't come overnight. It took 3 years, 3 years of constant training and self-evaluation and putting myself in check and doing a deep dive, as I like to put it. I'm still doing that. This skill set of keeping myself in check and knowing when I'm overreacting and not overreact, and if I do overreact, hold myself accountable for it and acknowledge it and apologize for it and move forward with it. That is a everyday training session. You got to get your reps in every single day, as Joe Rogan likes to put it. I've noticed ever since he's been saying that, all his comedian friends and everyone says that you got to put them reps in. You got to put them reps in. I love it though. It makes sense. Just a little humor. But you got to put the reps into it. You got to put that in, that repetition. You got to say it to yourself. Like I said in my example, I knew that my ego was bruised and I could have reacted. And I even said it to myself. I was like, you know what? I could react like this. I could say all of this, but is it really worth it? And I thought about it. Was it worth it? No, it wasn't. Most often than not, it never is worth it. In the end, it never really is worth it. Most often than not. And that's the funny thing about it, is that we always think in the moment that it's worth it. And then hindsight, we're like, oh, damn, it really wasn't worth that. Oh, I really didn't need to overreact. Every day, we're every day there's someone that's saying that. And it's funny to me. It's really funny to me. Excuse me. So like, you just gotta be mindful of that stuff. And like I said, it's training. The art of living is a training of life. Every day you're training. Every day. If you don't get those reps in, if you don't do your stretches, your mental stretches, your emotional stretches, whew, it's gonna be a tough one. It's gonna be a tough one, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, and like I say, you can choose to live life the hard way or the right way. The choice is yours. And that's something that we kind of forget about. And I say that all the time. You know, it's your choice. But you gotta deal with the consequences, positive or negative. You gotta deal with the consequences. Because, overreacting, it is such a destructive action. And it's even more destructive to our emotions. It only deepens ourselves in despair. It devalues our self-esteem because, and like I say, it devalues your self-esteem because you're not really, what are you standing up for? Your ego. And I'll tell you, standing up for your ego, that is not a hill to die on. It is not a hill to die on. I don't care what anyone says. It is not a hill to die on. It's not worth it. because it really is such a destructive action. And not only to yourself, but it can hurt other people. It hurts their self-esteem, their emotions. Overreacting is such a selfish action. And that's why even for me that like, there was I in the episode focused on we control, the example I used in that situation, like I felt bad afterwards for the way overreacted towards my mom. And I, 5 minutes later I sent her a message acknowledging my behavior, saying that it wasn't right, that it was inconsiderate, and I apologized for it. And she appreciated it, and I felt good. Listen, if you overreact, fine. It's gonna happen. We're human. We all make mistakes. We need to live with that and get over it. But acknowledge the mistake. Hold yourself accountable. So many of us don't want to hold ourselves accountable and acknowledge our mistakes that we will spend the rest of our days convincing ourselves that we were right. And those people, you've done that to yourself. And the only reason why we spend the rest of our days convincing ourselves is because we were effing wrong to begin with. And that's just the damn truth. How many times has overreacting cost you a friendship? It's cost you a relationship. It's cost you a job. It's cost you family, friends. What is it? Was it worth it? Was it? I don't think so. But some people, they thrive on self-destructive behavior, emotions, words, and actions. They thrive on it. They don't know any better. It's what they've experienced. Like I say, we're all products of our environment. And if the environment that you grew up in was self-destructive, that's how you're gonna be. You are capable of training yourself and tuning that out, of change, of evolving, but that means holding yourself accountable. That means doing a deep dive. And many of us are afraid to do a deep dive. Many of us are, including myself. There are moments where I'm afraid to do a deep dive, but I do it anyways because I don't really have much of a choice. If I want to improve myself emotionally, spiritually, if I want to improve myself and evolve and grow, I'm going to go and do that deep dive, regardless of what comes out on the other end. But I know one thing for sure, I will be much stronger. I will be much wiser, much more confident in myself, more self-assured, and we're all capable of that. And it all stems from upstairs. It all stems from what's going on in the brain. Do you know who you are? Do you know what you are, what you're capable of? Some of us don't know. Some of us haven't had that time to do that. Some of us refuse to do it. And like I said, that's your choice. And in a sense, that to me right there, refusing to do it, that's an overreaction. Because you're overreacting to the reality of the situation. Because it's necessary and it requires work. Some people are lazy. Some people aren't motivated. Some people aren't driven. Some people are just NPCs, non playable characters. Some people want to live that life. Some people want to live their life with their head in the clouds or their head deep in the ground. And, that's fine. You can live your life however you want to. But don't live your life at the expense of other people. I don't like that. I don't like those kind of people. And if you're one of those people and you're listening to this, please work on that. Work on it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it in the end. It's not worth it. You know? In those moments where we feel like overreacting, we must remember to breathe. Think of yourself more. than actions. Think of yourself more than words. You're more than that. So in those moments when you want to overreact, think about that. Think about who you are. Think about that you're better than that. You're more than that. The person next to you, they don't deserve that. Even if they deserve it, it's not worth it. Listen, I pride myself on trying to be the bigger person as best as I can be. And that means, you know, sometimes you got to just walk away. Pick your battles. Or if you're going to have to go to battle, choose the battlefield. That's how I do it. I choose the battlefield, the playing field. But in overreacting, it's not, you don't always have time for that. It's in those, overreaction is an instant. It happens instantly. You don't always have time to process. But if you can catch yourself in those seconds, be proud. Be proud of yourself. Because remember that most of the time, when we overreact, it is a reflection of who we are as a person. And like I say, you have to practice the art of reacting. I like that. Practice the art of reacting without reacting. It brings clarity and it improves your personal experience. And you can share that. You can share that with the world. Share it with everyone else. Teach them that. We don't teach people valuable, positive lessons that help us grow. And like I said, practice the art of reacting without reacting. It may seem silly, but like I said, you will feel more proud of the inaction you took rather than the self destructive action. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Monday Mindset. To learn more about myself and how you can support the Monday Mindset, head over to my Patreon page at Ronin Art and Music. Again, that's Ronin Art and Music. If you're listening to this on your preferred streaming service, please make sure to subscribe. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment and review, and slap that notification bell. On iTunes, please make sure to subscribe, rate the podcast, and leave a review, as this will help me and the podcast grow. Stay positive, stay focused, stay true, and much love.